All right, welcome to Black Swan Diaries. My name is Shane, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the events that are happening right now in our world, and I'm going to try and record these videos in more of a diary, more of a journal fashion, because when you talk about a Black Swan event, chances are you don't know you're in a Black Swan event until it happens. And then on the other side of it, once it's over, you're like, oh man, we should have saw that coming a mile away. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this channel, is to document everything that's kind of going on and just kind of share my thoughts a little bit. Some of them are pretty random. Some of them might be outside the box, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things I thought about is, we had, like here in Canada, we had the Freedom Convoy. And when that was going on in Ottawa, it was right when it seemed like COVID-19 was wrapping up. We didn't know it, but that's what was happening. And when Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, it caught everybody by surprise. He cleaned out the city of Ottawa, and then they had a vote in the House of Commons on whether or not that we should continue with the Emergencies Act and all this kind of stuff. And Trudeau was just definite. He's like, we need this, all this kind of stuff. Then the next day he revoked it. And it was like, well, why? And what we found out was the Senate was about to vote on it. They were debating it. And there was a rumor that maybe they would have just shot it down. Who knows? We'll never know. But Justin Trudeau revoked it. Then basically the next day, within 24 hours, Putin announced a couple of states in Ukraine that he recognized. I forget which ones they are. I should know this by now, but he recognized 2 states and then started moving his troops there, saying that he's protecting them. And then he just kept going, and now we're in full invasion of Ukraine. So I thought, you know what, why not create a channel around what's going on here, because there's some interesting things going on. One of the things I thought about is, when you're looking for a Black Swan event, it's pretty tough to find when you're right in the middle of one. But sometimes I look at things like, okay, the U.S. is putting sanctions against Russia. Russia is saying basically that if Ukraine is interested in being part of NATO, we don't accept that whatsoever. They want conditions on Ukraine, and then they'll stop the invasion, all this kind of stuff. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. So then I thought, well, let's just look at a couple of things. What if Joe Biden is smarter than he looks? I know it sounds ridiculous, but what if he's smarter, and what if the people around him are actually smarter than we give them credit for? We don't know what their agenda is, but let's just start with that. And then what if Putin got suckered into starting this war? And I'll make more videos about this, but it's the only way that you can actually attempt to find a Black Swan, is if you kind of change scenarios around a little bit, because otherwise you get stuck in one direction. So I'll try and explain myself a little bit more in another video. But another interesting thought is, what if Zelensky isn't the hero that we think he is? What if this is something bigger? What if this is something bigger and we don't know? I've thought about this just reading in the book of Revelations, because there's lots of ties with Ukraine, with Israel, with Russia, with what's going on. And there's very little talk about what's going on in North America in Revelation, unless you decode stuff, and it gets really complicated fast. But I thought, well, What if there is a leader right now in the world that is positioning himself or herself as the Antichrist? What would that look like? What would that have to look like? Well, I think the first thing is you would have to have overwhelming favor in the world. You would have to have a lot of people pulling for you, a lot of people cheering you on, a lot of people hoping that you are successful. Those are some of the criteria. Right now, Zelensky fits a lot of that criteria. People are pulling for him, and there's actually people trying to assassinate him, which ties in with the Antichrist as well. Because I think it's Revelation 13 talks about the seven heads of the beast, and one of the seventh head actually has a wound that looks like a mortal wound. It looks like the seventh head dies. So when you look at this, or the sixth head, I should say, when you look at it, it looks like, okay, well, what are the scenarios around what's going on right now in the world? If President Zelensky dies or gets assassinated, he is the sixth president of Ukraine. The fifth president, I believe, was ousted, and he's hiding out in Russia right now. If the sixth president dies or is missing in action, maybe he gets kidnapped or whatever, and Putin takes over Ukraine, Putin could put in that former president temporarily, because in the Bible it says it's going to be for a short time. Then the sixth president, or the sixth, I shouldn't say president, the sixth head that had the mortal wound comes back to life and takes over as the eighth head. It's very interesting. So it's a lot deeper than that. That's kind of surface level stuff, but I'm going to try and dive a little bit deeper. But it's just an interesting thought when you go outside the box and you start thinking, what if somehow Joe Biden in the U.S. did something that caused Putin to invade Ukraine, and now Ukraine is paying the price for it because maybe Zelensky got suckered into it. I don't know. Like it just, there's something not right about this one. It feels really strange, really weird. I feel like Ukraine is left out in the cold. NATO is just basically building up all outside of Ukraine. And it's weird because NATO was created in, I believe, 1949 after World War II in order to prevent Russia from expanding. That was their sole mission, to do that. So it appears that Russia is expanding now. So why can't NATO intervene and stop it? And there's all kinds of theories like, oh, you don't want to instigate Putin because you're going to make him mad, and nukes and all this stuff. And it's very possible that Putin could decide to push the button and destroy all of Ukraine. It's very possible, very probable that maybe he just wants all of Ukraine destroyed. We don't know. So that's my my take right now. Like, let me know your thoughts. I know it's crazy. I'm trying not to say that he actually, like President Zelensky, actually is the Antichrist, but there's lots of things lining up that he could be down the road. Could be that type of position, or a person in that type of situation could become the Antichrist, because there's some things going on with Ukraine and Israel that is kind of under the radar as well. Israel didn't give Ukraine some weapons that they were asking for. I think specifically the Iron Dome, which would be able to take out a lot of missiles. And Israel's meeting with Putin constantly on the phone, talking with him, because Russia maintains the air over Syria, so that I guess basically no one can bomb Israel. So they depend on Russia for air support over Syria, the airspace over Syria. There's lots of stuff going on. So if this gets messed up in Ukraine, Russia can decide, you know what, we're not going to protect the skies over Syria, and you're on your own, Israel. And I don't think Israel will like that either. So they're in a hard spot right now. Israel's in a hard spot. So keep an eye on that. Yeah, lots of stuff. But those are just my thoughts. Uneducated thoughts. Thinking outside the box. I know it's crazy. Somebody can come back a year from now and go, man, that was crazy. That was a crazy thought. Anyways, let me know in your comments. Thanks. Bye.